Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. I'm you and I'm hosting this week instead of Harry. We have four of the five of us. Unfortunately, Greg is out of action this week due to illness. Liam, how you doing?
Aye, doing well. You ken the rules. Hibs are happy. Liam's happy.
Aye, simple as that, really.
Aye.
Harry Montgomery got his first win on Saturday. As Liam says, I'm pretty sure they are your rules. Do they still apply?
Mate, you can. Specky's happy to share the rules, mate. So no worries at all, Liam. If Liam's happy, Harry's happy. So it's a double banger for me. Yeah, no, mate, absolutely buzzing after that. I thought we were fantastic.
Superb. Ryan, all's well in your world?
Hi, I'm all good. I must say though, I have heard this Hibs are happy, I'm happy on other platforms by other people. So I don't know who's the founder and who's the thief.
I think that says a lot about you if you've been listening to those other platforms.
No, I was well documented across Twitter, so nothing to do with me.
Look, boys, so as usual, we have asked for some questions and on Twitter. We're live on YouTube, so we'll monitor what you all have to say in the chat if you want to get involved with us. But look, we'll get straight into the game. Liam, Nick Montgomery's first game at Easter Road. Any real surprises with the team lineup? There was obviously 3 changes, perhaps 2 enforced from the Kilmarnock game and 1 not so enforced.
One rather large dreadlocked surprise. Not the central defensive dreadlocked surprise, but more of the winger dreadlocked variety. That was a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest. I know he talked him up after the Kilmarnock game, but I was still a bit surprised to see him in the starting lineup. Wasn't surprised that Doige missed out just based on the kind of the nature of the injury he picked up against Kelly. It would have been quite a lot to wrist him after having however many stitches he had above and below the eye. So some changes, but I think that one was the big surprise for me.
Yeah, Ryan, obviously from the Kelly game, Rocky struggled a little bit. He kept his place, but Lewis Stevenson, who would have played to the left of him at Kilmarnock, dropped out for Jordan Obita. On the face of it, like we say, before even looking at the performance, did that come as a surprise that it was Stevenson who missed out and not Rocky from that side of the defence? Or
yeah, in terms of what you said there, it was probably a little bit of a surprise, but I do understand the thinking behind it. At home on a nice surface on a big pitch. Obviously, in this kind of system, the fullbacks get quite high and are really involved in the attacking play. And I think Jordan Obita's qualities lie more on that side of things as opposed to Stevenson being a little bit more conservative and more defensive. So I was actually quite happy to see Obita in there, maybe just to offer something a bit different going forward.
Yeah. And Harry, what about yourself there? Was there anything in there that you didn't like, at least on the face of it? Or are you still in the Nick Montgomery honeymoon where regardless, he could have named any 11 players and you would have been fully behind it?
No, I think one thing that I didn't really like about Lee Johnson is he would say things and not back them up, whereas Nick Montgomery's came in and said from his perspective the players have got a clean slate. Like, I think realistically, if he'd spoken to David Gray about Jair Tavares, David Gray probably would have been like, he shouldn't be too high on your pecking order just based off what we've seen of him. But he's clearly done something that's impressed Montgomery in his time, so he stuck to his word. So for me, I was in the group chat. I was like, I prefer not to speak. I wasn't too positive going into it, if I'm being completely frank. But yeah, I think they proved me wrong. I'm sure we'll go on to Tavares in a bit, but I don't think he was awful. So yeah, no, I was happy with the team after 10 minutes.
Yeah, so you say after 10 minutes, Harry, that it was a bit of a slow start, really, wasn't it? Hibs, maybe the nice way to say is we eased ourselves into the game. I think Joe Newell and Jimmy Jeggo were both guilty of getting caught on the ball sort of early on in the game. That Joe Newell definitely got caught, which led to the free kick that St John's had within the first minute, and I think Jimmy Jeggo got caught, which led to another good chance. Were you a bit worried with the slow start, or was it did we just need patience? Or
being honest, just with it being a new play style that we're not used to seeing Hibs utilise, I was very nervous for most of the first half, to be honest. Like, we fully appreciate Montgomery wants us to start building out from the back. He wants us to play slow football and kind of pick holes in the opposition. Obviously, as people like to claim these days, the low block, when teams are sitting in deep with 2 lines of 2 back 4s to break down, it can be really difficult to find those holes. But I think the patience kind of paid off as the game wore on. And come the second half, I felt comfortable. But yeah, first half, just Rocky and Fish. I thought Fish had a very good second half, but first half, at times, both of them I felt they could have played the pass like a second or two earlier. It just would have eased me, but I just felt that something bad was inevitably going to happen, but it didn't. So yeah, I was happy with the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, Liam, that's perhaps was evident maybe in the crowd as well, probably throughout the first half, but definitely early on there was a little bit of would you say nerves or would you say impatient? Where did you land?
I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it was impatient, because I've seen that crowd at Easter would be a lot more impatient than they were on Saturday. I felt like I felt like it was probably more competitive than it needed to be and that it should have been.
Yes.
There was the game for the first probably half hour, 35 minutes, if I'm being frank, felt quite evenly matched, and it was kind of two teams going punch for punch. And I actually thought St Johnstone were a bit more aggressively set up than I expected them to be. Like, I was expecting it to be like a la Tommy Wright, Callum Davidson, sort of two banks of five, going in and see what you can see if you can break us down. Whereas actually they did actually try and get some players forward, and maybe they thought that with some of our defensive frailties, because let's be honest, like our weakest area of the pitch, everybody in the league knows it's the back five. Like, it's by a long way the weakest area of the field for us. Maybe they thought they could come to Easter Road and maybe nick a goal in the first half hour and sit on it. They didn't fashion a huge number of chances, but there was, I mean, the Jago incident you've talked about, where he kind of gave the ball away inside his own half. There's a couple of times Neil got caught dithering on it as well, which maybe led to things. I think if they had been maybe a bit more purposeful when they'd got possession back, I think they could have caused us some problems. I think the other thing you'd have to say about it, and maybe come on and talk with later on, but you did see how poor a side they are when they did get themselves into positions, because I mean they are the worst team in the league. Let's just call it what it is. They're bottom of the league for a reason, and I said at the start of the season I think they'll go down. I kind of stand by that. I haven't seen them play live on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree on St Johnstone. I don't know if we will come on to like their general poor performance, but having sort of seen other teams that you would tip to go down, and sort of Ross County have made life difficult for some teams at some points this season, but having sort of seen Livingston at Easter Road as well, albeit it was a poor Hibs side, St Johnstone just looked limited. I did think they'd done a good job of getting sort of Dan Phillips and Cammy McPherson involved in the game, quite high up the park. I agree. I thought Graham Carey started the game well as well. But that being said, we did still create a few chances, Liam. So the game was probably a lot more open in that first 10, 15 minutes than it was. Maybe the rest of it, Hibs probably took control after that. There was still a couple of chances. Martin Boyle flashed wide, and we'd maybe got ourselves into a lot of good positions to get the balls across and stuff without, albeit, testing the goalkeeper early doors. Yep, sweet. Well, let's just go straight on to the first goal, Harry. Joe Newell, fresh off his lovely performance on here on Thursday night, put a really good ball in, actually, to Lewis Miller at the back post. I don't know about you, Liam, but at the game I thought it looked like it'd been massively overhit. Just maybe it was just the angle it was coming in at, but good ball in, Harry. Probably had a much harder finish than they made it look, I think.
Yeah, no, I think Joe Newell's obviously been in amongst the action of late, being on the biggest podcast in Edinburgh. In seriousness, it was a really good ball from Joe. I think that set pieces is something that I've kind of had a question mark over. I'm not saying that Montgomery's, I don't think it's possible to fix set pieces as quickly as he has. But I think that Joe Newell's delivery in the last few weeks has been a lot better, and same as Martin Boyle. I think that ball was perfect, as you say. Miller, the way he threw himself at it, I thought he'd almost fluffed it for a second, but it was a really good finish in the end. Obviously, keeper had no chance, so yeah, it was great.
I don't know if you've watched sports scene, but Kennedy, Kilmarnock missed a really similar chance for them at Dens at the weekend. He sort of got in at the back post, and in fact, he was a lot closer, and I would say it was an easier one, but he's put it and it's just clipped outside of the far post. So I think that actually put into perspective a little bit of just how good a finish it was from Miller. The goalkeeper didn't really have a chance with it, Liam, at all, did he? Like, he had to do everything, really. There was no pace on the ball, really. It wasn't as if he was coming onto it either, really.
It was one of those ones that I know what you mean about the sort of trajectory of the ball. It was really high and it dipped quite a lot sort of at the last minute. But like, one of those wild free kicks that you see, it looks like it's going well over the bar and then ends up just snuggling inside the bar. I did that. It was a really, really good finish. And it's one of those as well where, like, we'd sort of, it was kind of second phase, wasn't it? And they'd been a wee bit unsettled and weren't maybe able to get back into position. So their whole sort of defensive structure had maybe been pulled apart a wee bit. And then probably the last thing that you're expecting is a sort of 6'2", 6'3" right back to be kind of sneaking at the back post and get a header on it. But actually, one of the things I was looking at when I was watching us at the weekend is quite a big team now. Like
Yeah.
we've got quite a lot of pretty tall footballers, and actually when we put balls into the boxes in areas, we can hurt teams. I was actually, you were talking about Obita earlier on, I was actually surprised about how good he was in the air on Saturday. There was a couple of balls that were looking like we're going to go over his head to the back post, and he just managed to get a flick on it. One of them, he actually managed to bring it down as well and get it away. He's a big lad too, so we've certainly got size on our side, which is important in this league because we know how important set pieces can be from a sort of negative and positive aspect.
I think out with Doidge in the front line, you wouldn't necessarily think any of the guys are aerial threats, but I think you've seen Dylan Vente scored in Europe, I think, with his head. Fondre sort of throws himself about and is at least a nuisance. And I mean, I've said it before, I think Ellie Yuan doesn't get enough credit actually for how effective he is in there as well. I think we do I agree with you there. I think it's not a team that should get bullied. You wouldn't think, especially that the defence that lined up on Saturday. In general, though, Harry, in the first half, how impressed were you with that control that Hibs took of the first half after the goal, or even after that initial sort of? To be fair, St Johnstone probably did have the better of it early on, and I felt like Newell and Jago really took over.
Yeah, no, I think the main thing is after we scored, I just think we looked comfortable. I did feel we needed the second goal. Obviously said that against Kilmarnock and we saw it happen. But I think the overall balance of the play, as you said earlier, I think that fans just need to learn to be a bit patient. We're just used to managers not doing very good things. And I think that was probably the best game we saw of Vente. I think that he got a lot of the ball all over the pitch. Probably sometimes he was even too deep, if anything. But one complaint I had after the Kilmarnock game is I didn't think that he saw enough of the ball. Obviously, he got his goal, but I didn't think he was particularly involved aside from that. But this game, I think we got to see the real impact he can have in terms of linking up the play, etc. Because with Tavares on the pitch, you do kind of become one-dimensional in terms of looking for Martin Boyle. I think that from Tavares, I'm just going to touch on him now because he might not come up. I think that Tavares, his movement was really good, and I actually thought he made some really nice runs in behind that kind of stretched the defence at times. And if he had a better end product, we probably could have seen the benefits of that. But yeah, when you've got Ellie Yuan and Martin Boyle on the pitch, you've just kind of got two wide areas that you're going to target the entire time. But I felt that with not having Yuan there, you kind of had to bring Vente into the game more, which for me was great to see. It's good that we can have not our strongest team out there and still have options when attacking. Liam, you completely hated what I said about Tavares, so please feel free to rip it.
No, that's just the thing. I saw you and scrunch his face up a wee bit as well, so very obvious body language. For me, it wasn't really about end product, it's more about what happens between the movement and the end product. Like, he wasn't strong enough to keep possession at his feet. He drifted in field a couple of times, and I agree what you're saying about movement, Harry, because when he came in field, which is clearly an instruction, by the way, for both wide players, because we saw it a lot in the Kelly game and a lot in this game. Wide players coming in field when they pick up possession, or even doing that out to and run. They are good runs, but he's just. To say he's lightweight is kind of like underselling it massively. He's just so powder puff, and to be honest, unless he's going to get into a position where he's got 10-15 yards of space every time he's got the ball, I really worry about him being able to mix it in this league. It was quite alarming to me, the difference in the team when Yuan came on. Like, we were just so much better when he came on, and Yuan's not really been at it the last few weeks, but he was a massive upgrade on Tavares.
Yeah, not to be too critical, I just massively agree with what Liam said there, to be honest. I think, actually, I agree with what both of you have said. JR did do some good things, and he did get into some good positions, but I sort of agree with, I think he's there by instruction as opposed to by sort of his own doing, if that makes sense. I don't think he's playing off the cuff. The difficulty with Jay is you don't want to write him off because the new manager's obviously seen something in him. He's brought him on at Kelly, he started him yesterday, but just Liam is spot on. He just got shrugged off the ball too often for me, and maybe he's just thinking about things a little bit too much. You know, he's taking that extra touch. He's just getting it a little bit slow, like he's turning and then a little bit hesitant, and maybe that'll come with time. You know, like maybe it will. But if you even compare him to an Ellie you had last season, even when you had started the season, and you still seen there was something there. You know, he was still causing. He wasn't getting the goals, he wasn't getting the assists, but he was still creating, and he was still. The confidence was there. I don't necessarily see that with Jair, and I think what it did highlight was that we are potentially weak in that area. You know, I think we've got two of the best wingers in the entire league, including the Old Firm. You know, but after that, there is a drop off in the wide areas. I think I'm not sure that. I mean, a total sidetrack. I don't know if Boyle and Yuan would probably be the best pair of wingers in the league. Can't even think off the top of my head that. What would Celtics be?
Maeda and Abada would probably run them close. I've not seen the two new boys for Celtic. Is it Palma? Luis Palma?
I have no idea.
Palma and Bernardo or something like the two new boys at Celtic. I've not seen either of them yet.
I don't think Rangers play with the wingers. So.
I don't think Rangers play with wingers. No, I think they play with a narrow front three.
I don't think Rangers know what Rangers play with.
No, I don't think honest.
They do. Beal ball.
I've heard little clips that they don't play wingers. So, your statement's probably not far off at you.
Right, let's move on to the second half. Hibs sort of came out the traps pretty well. I felt like we probably could have scored a goal earlier than we did. Ellie Yuan was obviously introduced, but truthfully, the first major talking point of the second half is an excellent save from David Marshall, who I think the goal would have been called off had it went in, because the boy standing right in front of him was in an offside position, so I think it probably would have been called off for interfering with the goal, you know, interfering with the goalkeeper's eyesight or whatever. But Ryan, that's a tremendous save from David Marshall, isn't it? Absolutely. Quick
reflexes. It's from a really kind of short distance out, and you had to move his seat quickly to get down, which we've seen him struggle with in the past. So I was really impressed to see him make that save. This is also Scotland, so you don't know if that would have been called offside or not. You never know with VAR. But yeah, no, I've been impressed with him actually the last 2-3 games that he's played. So back to Aberdeen, probably I've been more happy with him than what I had been previously. I think we're seeing him start to come out for balls a bit better, and his general kind of goalkeeping has been at a better standard. If he's kind of dropped in the distributing side and picked up the goalkeeping side, I'm more than happy with that. I'm not really bothered for him pinging 40-yard passes. More than happy for him just to do his job. And then I think with Montgomery's style of play, we're not really hitting those long diagonal balls out and stuff like that. We're kind of playing a bit.
Hey, right, you've brought a really good point here, and I think Liam's edging in, so I'm just going to introduce one of the. I want all of us to talk about this, to be honest, because this was the
Liam's desperate to come in.
I'm fucking itching.
It felt like the biggest stress point in the entire stadium was there was a few occasions where maybe David Marshall should have released it.
He hates a counter attack,
but there was maybe only one occasion where I was like, it was definitely on. You know, I think sometimes it's easy to sit in the stand and like want it quicker. And I think some of it's by instruction. But Liam, I think you might be on a different train of thought from me there, just for your reaction. So we'll come to you first.
No, I wasn't what I was going to say. I'm not sure I agree about the distribution not being up to scratch. I don't know if you can remember the sequence of which they happened. He had an incredible 10 minutes because he came out and took a corner at the back post, which he gets criticised for not taking. It was a great take, but 2 minutes later, he played that first time ball to Jordan Obita on the left wing, where it was fizzed at him, and he fizzed it right into Obita's chest for about 40 yards, and then he makes that save. And it was just, as a goalkeeper, it was kind of the three things you ask a goalkeeper: came for his cross, distributed the ball, and makes a big save. I know this is probably the wrong chapel to bring it up in, but the save was very reminiscent of you remember the Craig Gordon save against Bolton from many years back, where he palms it away and he's got no right to get to it. It was a very, very good save. Maybe not quite as good as that, but it was very, very good.
Can I just counter that? I'm so I don't know if I maybe said it wrong. I'm not criticising his distribution from Saturday or the last 3 games. I would just rather that he'd done the basics of goalkeeping as opposed to maybe an emphasis on him being really good at distributing. If I had to pick one, it would absolutely be keeping the ball at the net.
I think the only thing I would say to that is I think the basics of good goalkeeping now have become distribution, has become part of it. I think the basics of good goalkeeping years ago was literally saving the ball, one-on-one, shot-stopping ability, and probably coming for crosses. Now, actually, the demand and the expectation on goalkeepers is way beyond what it was. And look, who knows? Maybe the new goalkeeping coach moving on, and us bringing a new goalkeeping coach in is giving Marshall a bit of a new lease of life. I don't know. You know, maybe we still got to see some great things from him still. I don't know.
You never really answered it, Liam, I suppose, but were you frustrated when he didn't release the ball quicker, or are you sitting there okay?
I mean, I shout every time for them to get it moving, but that's just the shout that I have every single time. That shout will never go away.
I'm laughing because I knew, I pictured him in my head kind of doing what he does when you asked the question before he answered. He's eager to get it going again.
It's for me, like, I seen it. Hibs tweeted the save, I think, this morning or yesterday, and people were in the comments to it being like, "He doesn't release the ball quick enough," and I'm like, one, have a day off, and two, like, I think it's
appreciate it.
I think it's easy to sit in the stands because we can see everything, but also half the time it's no on. You know, it is ultimately a 50-50 chance, really. You ping a ball in behind, the winger gets it or the fullback gets it. You know, like, it's not a dead set thing. And I think with what you see what Hibs are doing from goal kicks, from what I've seen, then it's slow build up, and then when it's on, we go, as we've seen on the second goal. So I think we might need to accept that we're probably on the rare occasion going to break quickly from the goalkeeper. I think the plan is to build up through the defenders. As John Collins says, the ball is round. It's meant to go from the defence into the midfield. But Harry, what was your 2 pennies on that?
My 2 pennies is 5 minutes of conversation about goalkeepers kicking the ball out is mental. For me, obviously you want your, like, one thing that always springs to mind, Ange Postecoglou, when he first went to Celtic, he was mic'd up in training, and then he was giving a big massive speech on how we don't stop, and then everybody was slating him for it. But for me, that's when it comes to goalkeeper, that's kind of what I think. Like, it's not a we don't stop, because obviously nobody in football is going to stop over a 90-minute period, but it's like the relentless want to get the ball in action and get your team moving up the field. And for me, like, as you say, it's, at times the keeper sees different things to what we see, because you'll see it from a different point of view. But where possible, more times than not, in my opinion, you should be trying to get the keeper the ball at his hands. It shouldn't be kicked for me. It should be thrown out or rolled out to the relevant player within 3 seconds of getting it. If you're in a game in which you need to get a goal. If the game's tight, I don't mind the keeper falling over and taking his time. But for me, if you're 0-0, 1-0, I want the ball out of his hands quickly, just because I want Hibs to be on the front foot and attacking teams.
Fair enough. I don't think we're going to see much of that. I think the manager wants us to build slowly. We're going to jump into YouTube comments here a few times. We'll run through a few of them nice and quickly. From Sebo Slice, evening gents, and Ryan.
You'll get one of these, boy.
Hope you're all well. Anyone else worried Sheffield United come sniffing about Montgomery as heck he's going to get the sack and Monty's started well?
That's 100% his next career move. Like, not right now, but it's absolutely written in the stars that he'll go there at some point based on his playing career there. I just hope it's in 2 or 3 years' time for now, after he's brought the league title back to Easter Road.
Yeah. Far too quick for me, I would say, right now. Mike, Mike Hibbs, 2 questions. Not sure if it's been spoken about already, but how good was Alf on Saturday? Very, very intelligent and so hard working. Was man of the match for me. Kept getting in front of defenders and playing very smart balls through and bringing teammates into the game. Well, let's move straight on to Adam Le Fondre and that second goal, Liam. Look, it's a great finish about Dylan Vente. We'll have a chance to wax lyrical about him, but let's talk about Adam Le Fondre's role first.
Mate, the awareness, was it last week I was saying to you that he just always finds himself in 5 yards of space, like, no matter where he is in the pitch. Guy's so fucking clever. Like, I wasn't going to be hands up. I wasn't that hot on it when we signed him. I was a bit like, I don't know. But every time I watch him, I go, that was a stinking cold take. Like, not being in it, because he has been like, his impact versus minutes on the pitch ratio, I would argue, is probably the highest of any player in the league at the moment, because his impact is just goals, really, innit?
I think his goal contribution actually matches up with that, Liam, or at least it certainly did sort of post Aberdeen. I think he was, I might be making this up, but I think it was a goal or assist every 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think I seen a stat to you guys about his goal and assist. It's something like 1.8 every 90 minutes. Like, obviously, he's coming off the bench as well. So if you kind of factor that in, is like Liam says, his contribution per minute is outstanding. But he's probably one of the most intelligent players I've seen at Easter Road for a long, long time. It's not by mistake he gets himself in space. He's very clever, and he links the play perfectly in that kind of system that we're playing now. I think we've seen that with the second goal. Very, very clever. I don't think it'll be out of turn for me to say that probably a lot of the fans weren't 100% sure what kind of player he was, especially at his age. But he's as sharp as a mid-20-year-old. Like, he's just so quick off the mark, really quick, sharp, really fast with the ball at his feet. Just does everything right.
I knew the type of player was. Like, my reservations came from the fact he was a 36-year-old who'd spent 2 years playing in the A-League and then Indian Premier League. And I don't mean to sound like football snobby about it, but it's not a good level. And I did worry about that, in all honesty. I even worried a wee bit having seen him in some of the early European and pre-season games. But to be honest, when it's mattered, he's been absolutely terrific. He's been, pound for pound, probably one of the best signings in the league. I know it's only 6-7 games in, and now the thing that makes it even better is the fact that so many folk wrote him off.
Yeah, I mean that. I don't know. Was it a Hearts podcast or a Hearts Twitter page or something that said they'd rather nobody didn't sign Hampden or Fondre, and that was beautiful. I feel that after every week we're just getting it, the timeline. And look, Harry, you've not had the chance to talk about Hampden or Fondre. Then, what touch was better? His touch against Luzerne or his touch at the weekend?
Oh, his touch against Luzerne. Genuinely, like, see when I first saw it, I was kind of taking the mick of it, being like, that's the best spin I've ever seen. But see, the more you watch that goal, like, that is genuinely a world-class piece of skill from Adam Fondre, like the one against Luzerne. Like, it is genuinely insane how he's done that intentionally, and we've got a goal out of it. Like,
I think it's up there with Bergkamp too.
I think we can get Harry to talk about this goal on every single episode we do.
And I will still be enthusiastic and still be excited about it because I just think it's genuinely mental. But yeah, no, it's just a touch of class. That's the thing that just oozes out of him. Every time he's on the pitch, we just kind of talk about how just class he is. For me, he's one of those guys. He reminds me of when I was younger, sitting watching Gillette Soccer Saturday, and his name would just always appear at the bottom. It was him and Rory McAllister, who used to be at Peterhead. Those two names every week would show up without fail, and I'm adamant that is not even a conspiracy theory; that is fact. But yeah, no, for me, I was very happy to see Adam Fondre come to the club, more for nostalgia reasons than the fact I actually thought he was going to produce. And I don't know if this is going to be a hot take that's shot down by you guys, but I like how many minutes he's getting at the moment. I don't like him at the moment as a week-on-week starter. I still think that coming off the bench and then starting every 3 to 4 games, I think will suit him. I think that no matter what player you are, I still think that as soon as you hit a certain age, your time should be restricted just because it's easier to pick up knocks, etc. So for me, I'm happy with how we're utilising them at the moment.
Harry, just very quickly before we come on to Dylan Vente, you and Denham's asking, how do you prefer your punditry role to presenting?
Oh, I feel like I'm stuttering quite a lot, mate. I'm not used to it.
You should be used to it by now. You've been on every radio station in fucking Scotland.
Hey, I'll stutter on them as well.
Right, no, let's come quickly on to Dylan Vente. We'll talk about his finish, but we've had a few comments on the YouTube channel, some questions on Twitter. So, Randall Carlson, does Vente ever miss? There's a few other ones in here about Dylan Vente as well. Sorry. Kevin Maddox from Newcastle. How about Vente, Deutsch, Boyle, Fondre, Yuan, the new famous 5? That would work nicely for me. But the question on Twitter, very early days, but Vente looks like an inspired signing. Realistically, how many goals do you think he should get this season? That's from Kevin Wilson. Liam, maybe answer that question secondly, but just talk about that the finish and Dylan Vente's impact already, maybe at the club.
His impact's been really good. I think there's a lot of pressure when you're signed for that amount of money and come to a club like Hibs. There's a lot of expectation that's placed on your shoulders, and probably rightly so in some respects, given his goal record. But he seems to have just taken that in his stride, to be quite honest. He seems like, from the various bits we've heard of it, a bit of a character. So hopefully it's not kind of weighing on his shoulders too heavily. I think it does help that he's got good players around him as well. I always think that's the thing. Coming to a club like, if Dylan Vente signs for, I don't know, Colin Calderwood's Hibs, does he make the contribution that he's made so far? Probably not. But he's coming into a team who's got good players and really importantly, as we saw on Saturday, intelligent players and football around him. I'm not going to talk about football IQ because that cliche is dead.
It's banned.
But no, clever players around him. I think that really helps massively. In terms of the number of goals he scores, I actually don't think he'll get mega numbers this season, only because I think the goals will be spread out amongst that front four. I think you'll probably see. I think you talked about it. Did you tweet about it? And you said maybe
I think there's
four of them all got 10 plus this season. I think that's a good shout.
I think there's a good case that there's 5 players in this squad that could finish with 10 plus goals. I think it would be difficult. Purely, it would depend a lot on cup runs and cup draws. But I think
the one that could come up short is Deutsch. Based on some of the work that he does, he's quite selfless. He does a lot of donkey work that maybe others don't do, and he comes deep an awful lot to receive the ball. I think Deutsch is the one who could come up short. But if you're asking now, do I think Boyle, Youan, Vente and Alf will get 10 goals this season? I'd be very confident at this moment in time. All 4 of them scoring 10.
I think
all comps.
I think the one that's most likely is Youan. I think Youan's already. I think we've seen a little bit of difference in his play this season. I think he's only got 2 goals this season. I don't think he's scored in the league. I just think with better players and with more volume, I think he will maybe see his assist numbers drive up. But then again, the little bit of selfishness that he has, I think he won't allow himself not to be scoring the goals as well.
Mate, what you're not accounting for is when we play fucking Inverurie local works in the 4th round of the Scottish Cup, and Youan does about 7 mazes and bangs them on the top bag just to put them on his Instagram reel. Like that is definitely happening. Like chopping inside boys for fun.
I do, but Jake, I tweeted out and more just as a question, do I think it or do I not? But it feels right at this very moment more than realistically that the tenant that they could potentially all get double figures. But Kevin asked about Dylan Vente specifically. So what goals do you see him landing on this season?
Mr. Ewan, I had about 4 questions thrown in there.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while.
First of all, for Dylan Vente, I would guess that he breaks 15. I would go for 17. I don't think he's going to, like, across all competitions, I don't think just 17 league goals, but I think he's more than capable if he stays fit to get 17 goals this season. And I would say that's a very good return. If he gets 12 or more, I would say for the first season in a new league, I would say it's a really good return. As for the rest of the team, as I said at the start of the season, the reason I thought we were finishing 3rd wasn't because we had Lee Johnson as manager. The reason I thought we'd finish 3rd is because I thought our attack was too good not to. I think Martin Boyle's the best winger in the league, maybe second to one of the players at Celtic. I'd rather have Martin Boyle over Duke. And then for attacking options, I think Dylan Vente is going to make Hibs a lot of money. I think we hopefully get him on a new extended, even longer deal at the end of this season. And then if teams want to come in, they can come in big for him because I think he's a very talented player. I don't know if I quite agree with Liam. I think he's the type of player that would still score goals in a team that isn't great. Obviously, might not see the overall play from him, but I think he's the best out-and-out striker we've had since Lee Griffiths. Obviously, Kevin Nisbet was really good for Hibs, and it's still early days to make a shout, but consistently, Vente has looked very good. His work rate for a box striker is insane. I know I'm probably got slagged for saying box striker, but I hope you know what I mean. But yeah, no, I think Dylan Vente is very talented, and I think that he'll make Hibs a good dosh.
Ryan, there's been a little bit of discourse about Dylan Vente's play outside of the goals. I know that Harry believes his all-round play is really good and he's more than involved enough. There's been some shouts from people saying that all he does is score goals. Where do you land on it? I think he did play on the periphery a little bit at Kilmarnock, but
yeah, listen, I think his goal scoring record is very impressive. I also think he's got qualities that don't get spoken about too much. That would be his work rate and what he does off the ball. He's also a very intelligent player, but listen, I don't really want my striker to be heavily involved in the play if it means he's not going to be where he should be. Tuck the chances away. If I look at Haaland, he's the best striker in the world, but it's at totally different levels. But he doesn't touch the ball near as much as what maybe a strike partner would, but he's always there to finish off the move. So I'm happy if Vente only touches the ball 5 or 6 times and scores a couple of goals. Yep. Stop laughing, Liam.
So, what you said? Did you say Vente is our Haaland and Adam Fondre's our Julian Alvarez? Is that
Correct, 100%. No, but I do think that there is qualities that maybe get overlooked, especially when we're out of possession. I think he works hard, really, really hard. And we've seen that, if you've got a minute to watch him out of possession, you'll see he does a lot of doggy work.
Yeah, I think anyone that watched the Luzerne game at home in his debut that would suggest that he doesn't do much off the ball, that would be extremely critical. That evening he done more than his fair share and still managed to score his goal. Look,
But just jump in there quickly. Just a thing that Joe Neal said, obviously, when we had him on Thursday night. He said that a lot of the time we don't know the instructions that have maybe been given out to these players. So that could be a big thing for Vente. He might be told, don't get involved in the build-up play, get yourself in the box. So we don't know.
Can I just say as well, whilst we're on the case of Vente, how nice is it that we've bought a striker into the club and he's not just being stuck on the wing? Like guaranteed, he'd have played at least twice on the wing by now if there was a certain moment in the bloody dugout.
Oh man, we're signing a striker from Swindon that scores like 21 league goals, and he plays right wing for us.
Right. Before we quickly move on to a sort of 2-week assessment of Nick Montgomery, I know Ryan's been quite keen on what he's said and what he's done. So we're going to have a wee review of some of that stuff. But let's go back to the YouTube comments. Stephen T, of poor Greg, assuming Greg isn't on the podcast because he hasn't gotten over you lads rinsing his hair in front of Joe Neal last week. I'll spring to Greg's defence. He is unwell, but I'm sure that did take him a couple of days to recover from. Stephen Nicholson, happy days, no more silly interviews. Members of the animal kingdom being rolled out on every defeat. Johnson was our banter, years are late. Ford is there for the taking. And then let's just follow that up with what Mike Hibbs said. Not sure if anyone noticed Will Fish busting a gut to get back when Saints had a breakaway in the second half. It maybe would have taken a cheetah to catch him.
I wonder what the GPS said, I wonder what the GPS was. It 83, 84? Who knows?
Look, Ryan, you've been quite big on sort of a manager saying something and then doing it. Nick Montgomery said he'd give youth a chance. During the week, we've seen Rory Whittaker get called up to train with the first team, and then obviously came on off the bench at the weekend for some substantial minutes. And he was actually coming on at 1-0. He was stripped. Yeah. He was stripped. So he was coming on regardless when the game was in the balance. Just how pleased are you to see that?
Yeah, I'm a big champion of using the youth academy at the club, especially the fact that it's been so fruitful over the years. Maybe not so much for our first team, but for others. I also take aside maybe winning trophies or winning derbies. I think it's one of the things I like the most in football, especially for Hibernian, is to see a young player come through, make his debut, and then kind of forge a career for himself. I really, really like that. And Nick Montgomery has stuck to his word on everything that he said so far. But I think the lad done really well. It showed a bit of balls to kind of want to put him on at 1-0. I'm sure he's all seen that he's a right back, but he played him further forward because Miller was winning his aerial duels quite well. So it was good to see him coming on, and he got a good bit of time as well. It wasn't just a token gesture. He actually put him on because he thought he could affect the game. And he was really unfortunate not to score as well, which would have been the dream debut for him. Yeah. Absolutely delighted for the lad.
Liam, just want to come in there as well. What did you make of Whittaker when he was on the pitch? Happy, surprised that Montgomery was so passed in? Or?
I thought his energy was really good in possession and out of possession. Being uber critical to say I think he could have done better with the finish. 16 years old and 44 days, it is a bit critical, but if you're going to praise first team players all the same and hold them to a similar standard, I think he could have done better with finish, but he was really good. I mean, let's not take away. He's obviously a player that we've got very high hopes for, because he seems to have kind of jumped up a couple of teams. He's gone from sort of playing just in the under-18s, skipped the development squad and come straight into the first team, and he's playing out of position as well, playing a bit further forward than perhaps he's used to, with that sort of security still having the right back behind him. I think it's brilliant. I think it's just I can't imagine the buzz that will give, and not just the player himself, but the buzz that will be around the youth team and youth teams in HTC, even the kids that are going in training tonight, to see a 16-year-old who was a ball boy a few weeks ago coming on and getting meaningful minutes in the league game. I think that will just work as such an incentive for some of those young guys to run that extra bit tonight, to do that little bit of extra work, stay behind. It just lifts the whole place. It's vitally important for a club like ours to do that, and we've got a manager who understands that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that Nick Montgomery's also been taking in a lot of the youth games and been watching them. Also know an unnamed player has been contacted, so I'm sure they all have been, to say that he's keeping a close eye and he's watching their development, so they'll be delighted to hear that too. I'm sure if Nick Montgomery was here, a couple of those guys actually wouldn't have been sent out on loan, they would have been utilised in the squad. So come January, you never know, a couple of those guys might be brought back and given minutes. So it'll have given, as Liam says, everybody a boost. You know, the youth players will be thinking, oh, that could be me in a couple of weeks' time, I'll put in a bit extra, or I'll raise my standards, I'll raise my game a little bit. Even to train with the first team is a big incentive for them.
Yeah. We love a tangent here, so here's something that has been absolutely not on the agenda for tonight's podcast, but Ryan talked about loan players there. It was quite a good weekend, by all accounts, for the players that Hibs have out on loan. Melkerson scored, I think. Henderson got a double at a stretch. If Lewis Miller's goal at Kilmarnock is his goal, then Ewan Henderson scored a double. It was the posting off the keeper's arse and in. Murray Aitken, I believe as well. He's been getting rave reviews out at Airdrie. I think Josh O'Connor's been handling himself pretty well. And forgive me, the McIntyre brother.
Oscar, left back.
Do we see any chance of any of these being recalled in January, Harry? Perhaps more specifically the older, the Melkersons, the Hendersons, or
just remember we've also got Noah Kenna out on loan. He played 90 minutes for Shrewsbury on Saturday as well.
Being honest, it seems based on the reaction that Ryan and Liam are better placed than me. I was thinking we should bring Dan Mackay back, so we've got another wide option, but I've no idea how he's getting on, and I don't want to bring Melkerson back to stick him on the wing again, because I don't think that he's a wide player, and we saw that with the goal that he scored. I think that we've learned very quickly that the players weren't being utilised correctly at Hibs, and they seem to be actually used correctly in different leagues. I think Henderson, I touted as a player that I think Montgomery would be really good for when he came in, and I'm glad to see him thriving in a different league. The only thing is I can't speak much to Belgium. That's what it is. He's in Belgium. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't speak much to Belgian football, but I don't think it'll be quite the same level of physicality as you get in the Scottish game, which is definitely Henderson's weak point, but he's showing that he's a player that if he gets time on the ball, he can actually make things happen. So for me, it's difficult to say. I think when he came in, he said that he was happy with the squad that we've got, and he thinks that he can use them all. And I think that he's extended that to the youth team, so you never know. That, as Liam and Ryan touched on there, it does bring excitement to the youngsters at the club. But the players have been kind of ostracised at the club as well. Noah Kenna is someone I know that the club's very excited about, and he wasn't really given much of a chance under the last regime. So that is a player that I would hope could get a chance, because I always thought there was something there with him. And then quickly, just on Whittaker, that was amazing. Yeah, that's the dream. You want that player that's a youngster. And I love Liam. That is the most Greg thing that's ever happened on the podcast. That's in Greg. He's 16, but it's his job. He may be a right back, but it's on his left foot. He should be doing better with that.
Brilliant.
See what it was. He should have taken a touch as soon as it came to him, but he let it run by him, and that's the only reason he never scored. If he'd taken the touch on his left and just hit it. But But the thing is, for him, even that moment, because when it's a snap moment, in his head he must be like, oh my God, I'm scoring here. Even when he didn't, that feeling for him must be amazing. That's an absolute dream. Answered your question, answered other questions. Ewan, back to you, mate. Sorry.
Liam, I just maybe do want to just very quickly pose that to you, but maybe just specifically Murray Aitken, a player that you had seen a decent amount of last year, doing well in the Championship. Would he be the standout candidate maybe to come in and stamp his authority on the first team, maybe not this season but next?
I'm not saying it wouldn't be. I think he would be coming into an area of the pitch where we're quite heavily saturated in terms of players. Dylan Levitt on the bench not getting game time. There's Jake Doyle-Hayes and there's Josh Campbell as well, who, so there's sort of 5 players there for what looks like 2 positions at the moment. Bear in mind we were playing a 3 there before. I think it would be hard for Aitken to force his way ahead. I do think he would maybe be, at this moment in time anyway, he maybe be better served by playing regular minutes as well. A player again who understands a great kind of work ethic and has really got his head down, done well at Airdrie, but his time at Hibs, he's shown that ethic. I've said it at various points throughout the last probably 9 to 12 months. I do think Oscar McIntyre's got a chance. Again, for me, I would only be recalling him if he was going to come and play regular minutes in the first team. Otherwise, I'd leave him at Queen of the South and let him play week in, week out, because Bartley seems to be trusting him there. I think he completed 90 minutes at the weekend in a league which, okay, it's maybe not the best League One in terms of quality that we've seen for years, but actually Queen of the South are a team with a bit of expectation in that league to be doing quite well. So I think it's good for him to be playing at a club where there's a bit of expectation rather than playing at a club where they're just hoping to kind of stay in the league. So that's my sort of my two cents in it. But for probably between those two we've just mentioned now at the moment, in terms of the younger players that you'd be looking at potentially coming back in January.
Yeah. Right, so we've got a few questions coming on Twitter along the same lines, focusing on Rory Whittaker and the youth team in general. So Albert Street on Twitter, who's the next youngster to get a debut? Paul Mackay. Do you think that now Nick Montgomery has used a 16-year-old for the first team? God, I felt old when he came on. Do you think there will be more throughout the season, and who's going to be next? Is there anyone that sort of springs to mind? I was surprised that maybe someone like Rudy Milotnikov sort of has been jumped. You know, he came on at Aston Villa, featured in the pre-season. Is he the one that's maybe the obvious candidate in an area of the park that we're not too strong in?
Depends where he's utilised, because he's kind of a midfield player again. So I know he's played wide when he's played for the first team, but I think Milotnikov and McAllister have got the same challenge maybe as Murray Aiken, that there's a lot of players in that area of the pitch. So we're not just talking about being down to individual talent. He's an attacking midfielder. I think he has been used wide by Hibs, but I don't know if he would class himself as a winger. I wouldn't have thought so. You know, again, Jacob McIntyre's in a similar boat. He's probably one that's pushing is pretty close, but again, he's central midfielder. So there's kind of one common challenge that we come back to here.
I
think he picked up an injury though, didn't he? He's picked up an injury recently. I think he's broken a toe or something like that. So that'll maybe set him back a wee bit. I think in terms of youth players breaking through, it depends on how Montgomery views his squad and maybe where he's light. That might be the kind of players that he turns to. Obviously quite light at right back. Maybe that's why Whittaker was kind of looked at and brought into the squad, although he didn't play there. And then again, wide players, because in terms of depth, we don't have an awful lot. I think you put a player on like he did Whittaker further up the park. I think Liam said it gives you that defensive security and the ability to play with freedom and without pressure.
Yeah, of course. Keanu Megwas went on loan to Airdrie as well now, hasn't he? Is it Airdrie, sorry?
He's and I do you know what I like about that? It's quick decision making. Like, he's come in and he's made an assessment on Megwa, and he said, I think the best thing for you is to go and play regular minutes, and he's just immediately looks like he's promoted a guy into the first team squad from presumably the under 18s, because let's be honest, Rory Whittaker wasn't on anyone's radar until that Patrick McPartland article on Monday or Tuesday, and now all of a sudden he's kind of the main talking point of this podcast, which is quite a meteoric rise. Even if I did say he probably should have put the chance away.
So if we were to revert back to what I said about this sort of a 2-week review, 2 league games in for Nick Montgomery, style of play. Jeff's asked us a question there. Sort of not got it word for word, but basically, do we expect that Nick Montgomery will continue with the same style of play against the Old Firm, even away from home? Do we expect it will sort of be this sort of gung ho attitude? And I feel like trying to dominate the ball. Have you first of all been impressed, Harry, with what we've seen in the two games performance wise?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the Kilmarnock game, especially the first half, I thought was really, really positive and really, really good. So I was really happy with that. And then the game at the weekend, I think we kind of just prolonged. There wasn't really a stage of the game where I thought, wow, we are amazing. Like, we are incredible. But the whole game, I thought, we're good. You know, it was just kind of like a nice steady balance of us controlling a game completely without relentlessly battering a team. And it's not something that I've seen Hibs do under many regimes of late. Because even if you look at like Lennon when we were good, we were just relentlessly attacking teams because of the options we had. With Hecky, it was never really a control first. And then with Maloney, we kind of touched on it. Like, we've touched on it before. Like, it was very possession based, but it wasn't really controlling the game. But I felt that, like, even though St Johnstone got some attacks and stuff, I didn't really feel like we were under threat. Like, the game was controlled at our tempo. And I think that's a really important thing. I think from his philosophy, it seems like he's got a way that he wants his teams to play. And that, like, I know that sounds daft and very simplistic, but I think he wants Hibs to be in the ascendancy. He doesn't want teams to come to Hibs and bully us. As we touched on earlier, like, we're not a team that should be getting bullied with the like stature of the boys. So yeah, long story short, I think we've got a clear identity that we're trying to forge, and I'm glad that that's the goal. Like when we started recruiting for a manager, I said I wanted someone with a clear vision, and if it took a while to mold it into the team, that's fine. I just wanted someone that could actually take over the club and the whole club, and that's what Montgomery's doing. Like, he's looking at 16-year-olds thinking, I could potentially give that guy a game in a first team game. Like, he's all over the shop, and it's magic.
For me, I think it's quite clear. I think the right word you've used the right word there. Sorry, Harry. I think control is going to be massive for Hibs. I think Nick Montgomery wants us to control games from start to finish where possible, and it's not going to be thunder and lightning football for 90 minutes. I think there is going to be spells in games where we recycle possession, if you like, to get in as many cliches as possible. I think we'll see the ball going into your Newells and Jeggles and out to the fullbacks and back to the centre backs. And at the weekend, there was definitely points in the game where the frustrations were starting to grow, at least around me. I think unfairly, Jeggle was being pointed out a lot around me for passing sideways and backwards. But I thought we've not really touched him. I thought Jimmy Jeggle had a great game at the weekend, along with Joe Newell, other than a couple of occasions where they both got caught out that we mentioned earlier. But I don't expect Hibs to be thundering like that. I say, I think there's going to have to be patience shown in the team and the fan base, and I think ultimately probably all the best teams in the world right now. I mean, Brighton are like, they get all the praise in the world, and rightly so, but their centre backs hold on to the ball and hold on to the ball and hold on to the ball until like the other team come out, and then they pop it around them. And for me, that's exactly what the second goal shown at the weekend. You know, like, we were calm on the ball, we were in possession, and 3 passes, the ball was in the back of the net. So like, I think that's what we're going to see from Nick Montgomery's side. I think we're going to have our hearts in our mouths for a few times when we try to play it from the back with there's definitely a demand for that, you know, from the goal kicks and stuff. And I think St Johnstone nearly caught, you know, if the midfielders had just sort of managed to just turn away from them, it maybe could have got messy a few times. But I think the signs are good so far, Ryan. Like I said earlier, you're quite keen on a manager just doing as they say they're going to do. Nick Montgomery's done that so far.
Yeah, I think he's been true to his word with everything he said. Like I said earlier on, he's not made any false promises. He said what he's going to give us, and he's delivered up till now, and I don't expect that to change. I think he'll keep saying what he's going to do, and he'll do it. As for the style of play, I think control is a big thing, and I think it's kind of going to be the style of play where it's about quality of chances as opposed to quantity of chances. I think it's maybe going to be the kind of slow build-up, control the game, and then pick off an opportunity or a moment where you know you're going to get a really good chance, as opposed to maybe limping up and having a shot from distance, which I don't mind, to be honest with you, because there's going to be a high return on good quality chances. I mean, we had 17 shots on Saturday and we had 8 on target, which is a big improvement from the previous regime. So yeah, it's probably about getting that quality of chance and being able to control the game at the same time. However, I do think one of the things that needed worked on the most was maybe out of possession. I think we're really easy to break down, and our weakness was definitely down the side. So if we can still do a little bit more tweaking with that, I think we'll be a harder team to kind of get through and penetrate.
One thing that I thought was interesting, he spoke obviously, Liam, after the Kilmarnock game about how the set piece goal really annoyed him. I don't know if you'd noticed it at the game on Saturday, but it looked like we were bringing pretty much everyone back for set pieces. And just is that me as a fan going, oh, there's something different, you know, like, but like that annoys him. So there's a visible change there.
That's become a really visible thing to me in football over the last sort of probably 12 to 18 months. Certainly games that you're at live, the number of players that teams bring back in the box. So it's kind of pretty commonplace. Maybe his understanding of the league and the types of teams that we're playing as well. I don't know what percentage of St Johnstone's XGs come from set pieces, but it comes from set pieces, but I'd imagine it'd be pretty high. So, you know, if that's one of their biggest threats, then look to nullify it early on, look to correct it. I'm sure we'd probably be spending a bit of time this week working on set pieces as well. I don't personally have an issue with it. But I think, you know, different types of games, different stages of different types of games as well will demand different things from how you defend set pieces.
Yeah. Someone that we've maybe harshly not mentioned so far, Lewis Miller obviously did score his goal, but we had a question come in from Jack on Twitter. There's a few questions to it. We'll just do them both just now. Is Miller the best right back outside of the Old Firm? In brackets, he is. And what for you is the most overrated album? But we'll come on to his music-related question after this. Lewis Miller, look, for me, I think Lewis Miller's proven to be a very good player that is getting better and better, but he's not the best right back out with the Old Firm for me. I think Ryan Strain is an upgrade on him at St Mirren quite comfortably. If I'm being honest, I know it's not to be too defeatist after what's been a really good performance by Miller, and he has had a good season, but I still think Ryan Strain's better than him. Harry, Lewis Miller, is that an area of the pitch that with each week we are becoming more comfortable with?
Yeah, I think so. I think at the start of the season as well, it was a bit of a fear of the unknown when it came to Miller. We obviously saw him really good a couple of games against Celtic last season, and that's about all we got of him. So I think we were right in our judgment of saying we probably needed cover in that position. I think it's not really been exposed in the last few games. I think sometimes he's a bit slow and players can get in behind him quite easily. But yeah, no, I think he's been really good of late. I think there's definitely a good player there. His physicality matches Scottish football fantastically. I love a strong player that doesn't mind getting mucked in. He has been getting absolutely rocked and booted about the place, so I feel a bit bad for him on that front because he's got a couple of elbows a few weeks now, so hopefully that stops happening. But yeah, no, I'm really happy with Miller. I think when you've got a player at the club that kind of evolves into a starting player, it's always nice because it feels like you've got a brand new player. And for me, that's kind of what Miller's felt like in the last 4 or 5 games.
Don't know about you, Liam, but he does a fuckload of complaining to the referee, and sometimes when he loses him, it takes a fucking eternity to get back at times.
He's becoming probably one of the most fouled players in the league, or at least when the fouls then they always seem to be pretty bad tackles. I mean, Graham Carey's forearm at the weekend was very naughty, very, very naughty. I'm surprised that didn't result in a longer VAR check, but don't know if you remember the Luzerne home game, but I feel like that game he just spent the entire 90 minutes just getting kicked up and down the park.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of other games this season. I think it was maybe just the Killer game last week. He does put in a power of work, but he does take a lot of hits as well. Quite like that he just kind of gets back up most of the time. I think you do need to be quite resilient in this league. He's going to have to continue being resilient, I should say, because he has been at that until now.
Yeah. Right. We'll move on. We'll move on from the game on Saturday. There now. Overall, really comfortable and well controlled 3 points and well deserved at Easter Road. That is game 1 of 3 home games on the spin this week. Wednesday night, Ryan sees us in action against St Mirren, who themselves are absolutely flying. Scoreline probably didn't do them justice at the weekend. They beat Hearts 1-0. We've already seen what they can do at Easter Road this season. Just how big a game is it? And on the face of it, do you expect Hibs to win?
It's hard to say how big a game it is, given how big the games we've had previously this season already at such a short stage. But obviously, it's the biggest game since the European ties, the league games. You've got so many of them; they all fall into place. But it's massive for us to be able to get a return trip to Easter Road. And in terms of credit in the bank, that Montgomery wins this and we get that trip so quick into his tenure. In terms of getting that fan buy-in, etc., like it's huge. I don't think there'll be any kind of doubters left if he manages to get through this tie. As for expecting to win, I think that would be kind of remiss of how well St Mirren are going at the minute. I mean, were they tied top of the league or are they second?
They're second. They should be joint top because that Aberdeen penalty shouldn't have counted, me asking.
So I think they've taken something like 14 points out of 16 or something like that.
It shouldn't be at 16 because 16.
14 out of 18. Yeah.
14 out of 18.
14
out 18. So, I mean, for a side working on the kind of budget like St Mirren, which is obviously smaller than ours, it's quite impressive. They haven't dipped yet this season, so let's just hope the dip comes on Wednesday.
Liam, should Hibs be confident of getting the job done, or should we be cautious of the opposition?
No, I think we should be confident of getting the job done. Like, we're the home team. We're the team that really should be taking the game to them. St Mirren will probably set up in the same way that they have done for pretty much every game this season, which is to be compact when without the ball and break when they do get it. It's going to be difficult because they're clearly off to as good a start as they have done for a reason, but the attacking players we've got, to be honest with you, none of St Mirren's attacking players get in our front five. So we should really. I mean, you could maybe have a bit of an argument about the defence and the goalkeeper, but for me, we've got the better players, so we should be not expecting, but I think we should be certainly pretty confident about getting the win.
Yeah, Harry, St Mirren line up in a sort of 3-4-3 religiously, with Keanu Bacchus and Mark O'Hara mainly the two midfielders in there. Could it come down to Joe Newell and Jimmy Jeggo versus A2? Whoever sort of wins that midfield battle, if you like, wins the game? Because I would say riot on the first day of the season, to be honest.
It's a difficult thing to do, but I think if you keep Mark O'Hara quiet, I think you nullify a lot of what St Mirren can do on the ball. I think that St Mirren's squad is a lot of good players with three very good players, in my opinion. I think Strain, O'Hara and Bacchus are all very good, and I think they start for any team in the league apart from Celtic and Rangers. So I think that they almost remind me in a way of St Johnstone, apart from St Johnstone had like the team that won the double, in the sense that they've got kind of good players throughout that could kick on and do really well, but they've, as Liam touched on, they've not got enough firepower. That is it. Olasanya, the striker. Mm-hmm. He's very quick, and that worries me against Fish and Rocky. To be honest, I don't think they'll deal with pace particularly well. I think that people playing it long, I think they're good at heading the ball away and getting rid, but I don't think they'll do particularly well with the guys running in behind them. So yeah, no, I think that it's an interesting battle. If Jeggo can keep O'Hara quiet, then I think that we're on for a cracker. I think we can definitely go and do something. But yeah, no, I'd expect to win. Of course I do. I expect us to pump them. I expect the DTS bus to be on tour to Hampden soon enough. Don't you worry.
A little bit of breaking news. I don't know, was that where you're going to? Rory Whittaker's just signed a 3-year deal.
Yeah. Well done, young man. Well done.
On you go, Liam.
He'll be absolutely buzzing tonight. Like, I don't know how he would have slept on Saturday night. Like, genuinely don't know how he would have slept on Saturday night. But I'm delighted for him. That's amazing. I was just going to say on St Mirren, I think the one attacking player they have had this season who's actually done, from my perspective, surprisingly well, is Conor McMenamin, who's coming from Glentoran. Be honest, I didn't really expect massive things from a 28-year-old coming from that league, but he has done pretty well. Olasanya is a big handful, but to be honest, I think players of that ilk, as long as we match them up with the right individual, I don't think they should be giving us too much of a problem. He didn't cut the mustard out of Arbroath last season. He's not a player I'm overly worried about. I thought he was good in the first game against us, but they don't like if by some freak of nature they end up managing to keep this run going together, it's not going to be a result of Olasanya's Kevin Van Veen-esque season.
We have had a couple of questions in regards to Wednesday night, Hanlon back in to replace Rocky. What's the thoughts? Personally, I do think we'll see a few changes from the weekend's lineup, and I think that will be one of them.
Hanlon was good when he came on.
Superb,
very good.
Really good.
Fish was brilliant the whole game, by the way. We've not even touched on that. I thought Will Fish was outstanding, best performance of the season so far at the weekend, but Hanlon was good when he came on.
I thought Fish was very good in the second half. First half, better than normal. Better than normal is maybe not fair, but
better than he has been this season. Kind of getting back to that level.
But second half really good. I think him and Rocky at the moment Stevie May went in the book just was like, all right, sound. This a piece of piss here. You know what I mean? Like I think that gave them that confidence that even if he does catch us, he's sent off. You know what I mean? And like, it takes that little bit of fear factor off of it. What about you, Harry? Hanlon in for Rocky? Any other changes?
I don't really think it makes sense to sub Rocky when there's a midweek game if you're going to bench him for the next game. I think if anything, you probably bench Fish and start Rocky and Hanlon together. I'm not saying that's what I would do. I'm just saying from Montgomery's perspective, if he's wanting to rotate things, I don't understand why you would take a player off if you're going to rest them midweek. For me, that doesn't add up. But might have just been a tactical thing for me. Like maybe after the Kilmarnock game, he thought let's not make the same mistake twice. But yeah, for me, that would probably be the natural. I wouldn't be surprised to see a young player in. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see Delvier get some form of game time, even if it isn't from start and maybe off the bench. But yeah, I'm just throwing random names at the hat now. I'm not really sure what Montgomery's going to do. He's got time, and I think he wants to win this game. I think he'll see that Celtic are at the cup and it's a winnable competition. I think the fans expect it to be treated as a winnable competition. If we went out, then I don't think that the fan base are going to turn on. But if we put a half-arsed team out there and we played really badly and got knocked out, which I don't think is going to happen, then I think that fans would have a bee in their bonnet.
Right, Ryan, I'm going to throw an 11 at you because you know I like to do that. Tell me if you would think this is realistic or not.
Smash your pass, Ryan. Smash your pass.
You just had to get it in there, didn't you? That's why you wanted to host,
Oh,
bro.
you know what it is? These two have went, oh, not really sure if I'd make any changes.
Right, let's go for it then, bud. Let's go for it.
Marshall, Obita, Hanlon, Fish, Miller, Diego Newell, Yuan, Boyle, Doidge, Vente.
Be more than happy to see that. Yeah, and I think the way that he's spoken about the game, he's going to take it seriously, and he's got every reason to. This guy's here to win. He's just come from a place that he's won. So I think, in comparison to the previous manager, who would have probably made quite a few changes, I think this guy's absolutely here to put a strong team out and take things seriously.
Do we expect Adam and Fondre to drop out? Harry, you said earlier, just sort of age and stuff like that. Would you be? Do you think Doidge will come back in?
I think so, yeah. And I think the system we played, especially in the first half, with kind of trying to test teams by going long, I think Doidge suits that a bit better than Fondre. I think, as you touched on, Fondre can be annoying in there, but I think that Doidge is a bit more effective.
Great. Score predictions, please, for the game on Wednesday night. Ryan, I'll come to you first.
Despite what I said about St Mirren starting well, 3-0 Hibs.
3-0 Hibs, wow. Liam?
Yes.
Hibs on penalties.
Wow.
What 0-0, 1-1?
Hibs on penalties.
Harry?
I was going to say Hibs on penalties, but Liam stole my mojo, so I'll say 4-4, and then we'll win 5-4 in extra time.
I'm going to say another nice and controlled 2-0 home win. Start to build up some defensive solidity. That's just, I don't know. I don't think we will be doing another episode between the sort of Wednesday night and the weekend's game. So obviously we've got Dundee at home. It's difficult to talk about that because obviously we don't know what's happening on Wednesday, but just feels like another good opportunity against the newly promoted side in the league to keep the momentum going in the league regardless of result on Wednesday night, Harry?
Absolutely.
Yep. Do you expect us to win that game at the weekend as well? Do you think we'll go 3 for 3?
It's one of those ones. Dundee are a bit sticky this year. They've already had a few good results, and then they've shown a bit of resilience as well when they got their point at the weekend. So I don't think it's an easy game. I don't think it's the same Dundee at the start of the season. I tipped them to go straight back down, but I do think they're a bit better than the last few renditions of Dundee that have been here. So I think it'll be a harder game in St Johnstone, but I still expect us to see them off.
Liam, I know it is difficult, but do you expect us to go and make it 3 from 3 on Saturday? As you've already predicted, a win on Wednesday.
Oh, I didn't predict the win. I predicted us to get through on penalties.
That still shows up as green on Football Manager, my friend. That is a win.
Is it? Aye. That's interesting. I do actually. Yeah, I think Dundee will feel a bit wronged by I think some of the events that happened at the weekend in their game, but I still think we'll have too much quality for them again. I just look at the players in the final third. I don't know a huge amount about the boy Bakayoko, but can't really say I'm too worried about him and Zach Robinson. And we've got good players in attack. I think we're just going to have to get used to the fact that rock and roll Hibs are back, and we're just going to score more than the opposition.
Aye, I'd love to agree, but I've said earlier that's exactly what we're not going to be doing. I think Luke McCowan is a standout player for Dundee in the middle of the park. Probably one to keep an eye on. I think he looks a really good prospect, still young. But yeah, Ryan, Dundee at home at the weekend.
Mate, Luke McCowan's not still young. Luke McCowan's been cutting a bit for a bit.
Mate,
he's playing it here genuinely about 6 years ago. I'm looking him up now. He's 25, mate. That does not qualify as young.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Apologies. Maybe it's someone else.
Maybe he's probably still young enough to win Hibs Player of the Year based on the category we have, but 25.
Sorry, I thought they had There was a player that stood out for them last season in Championship. Oh, well, no. Aye, Ryan, do you expect us to get back-to-back League Ones on Saturday?
I do. I think when it comes to kind of league performances, I think that will be a different animal at home. That's when we'll see the side start to take control of games and create those chances like you've seen on Saturday. And it gives us a great opportunity to go 4 unbeaten in the league. Take aside the cup game, if we win or lose that, it's good to build momentum and a feel-good factor around the club.
Yeah. Right, a couple any other business questions to wrap us up from Twitter, and we'll have a quick scan of YouTube. Rebel Hybe, given the news that Steven Gerrard has apparently tried to hire his old Rangers kitman to his team in Saudi, who/what could Hibs try to flog to him to fund a title charge? Harry, you're quite good at these stupid hypotheticals. What are we selling to Saudi?
So are we selling something we've got to them to help them win the league?
Yes, no, to help us win the league. We are selling something shite to get us millions of pounds to fund a league charge.
I reckon you could sell off the name of the Albion bar. I reckon you could call that the Saudi bar for about 10 mil a year and we'd make absolute bank.
Okay. Liam?
There you go.
I think we could sell them all the people that Lee Johnson had lined up to come and do the pre-match speeches in the dressing room. I think the Saudis would love the SAS coming in, telling them about how they murdered some Saudi or Arabic people in a war once. I think that'd be great. I think it'd go down really well in Saudi Arabia.
Ryan, anything a little bit more normal?
I think the pitch at the minute is looking outstanding. The head groundsman's done a fantastic job. I see him putting photos up on Twitter a lot. So if he was up for it, in fact, he's not got a choice. He's getting sold to the Saudis.
See, one thing that those two have in common: Lee Johnson and Steven Gerrard both love talking about the animal kingdom in pre-match press conferences. Well, there's not going to be any lions there, is there? Lee Johnson with his various mentions of the animal kingdom. I mean,
dear. Right, last question from Twitter. Apologies if we've missed any. I've tried my best to make sure that I've got them all. It was the second part of Jack's question. He does like to ask us some music ones. I've got to tap out on this. As previously stated, I am useless when it comes to albums. But what for you is the most overrated album of all time? I'll go for Dark Side of the Moon. It's a great album, but isn't as good as people make out. It's not even in Pink Floyd's top 2. And yeah, where are you going?
Do you know what? I have to agree with Jack there. It's like what do they call that? I can't mind the word for it, but it was an album that was brought out and it kind of all joins into one. The song, it's not got like different songs. The whole album just kind of plays out as one. Really strange album, considering the work they've done before and after it. So I'm going to go with that one. Great shout. Concept album, that's it.
I've got one which is just I hate the music, so it's music I've never listened to. But I think at one point it was the biggest selling album in the world was 21 by Adele. Adele's rubbish. Like, see if that's the music you listen to. Every single song sounds the same. They're all about the same thing. It's boring, it's dull, it's predictable. So that, or anything that U2 have released in the last 25 years.
What was the YouTube?
How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Dreadful album. Dreadful.
Couldn't they get it off the phone or whatever it was? What was it on Microsoft?
iPhone.
Elevation.
iPhone. Yeah.
Was the name of the single. Dreadful.
Harry, you obviously wouldn't have suffered that pain. What's your most overrated album of all time?
I'm just going to throw it out there. I think Oasis are a bit overrated. I think they've got some good songs, and I think they're good. But everybody goes on about them as if they're the best ever, and I just don't think they are. So any Oasis album, therefore, is overrated. And if you didn't like it, you can suck it.
see where we're at, Harry. And I don't disagree. I do like Oasis, but I do agree with they're overrated. Particularly people, usually men of a certain generation, overrate them. Another band that are heavily overrated are the Beatles, and I know it's just a little conversation starter, but the Beatles are so overrated. Their influence on music is overstated. They are very overrated, and they've got some good songs, but nah, not for me.
Well, Jack, let us know what you think of these answers. Jack also said, to answer my question last week, I don't know if do you remember what Jack's question was last week? The best album cover art for him is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band or Illmatic by Nas.
Good shout.
An attack.
Matt's
on
a good
Jack.
shout.
Oh, Liam, how could we?
Right, let's have a quick scan of the YouTube comments before we wrap up here. What have we got? Randall says, big difference is that we didn't have Vente or Monty last time against St Mirren. I think that's fair. You and Denham, St Mirren are very good. I watched them on Saturday. Don't underestimate them. How'd you do that? You're not watching the Hibs game. Sorry. But no, they did. They should. I think they had 2 or 3 goals. Wrongfully ruled off against Hearts. And we're going to finish off on a very, very positive one. G's a legend. G is a legend. So that took me far too long to suss that one out. We could put 10 past Dundee on Saturday, if honest. Feel with the amount of chances we create, we'll hammer one team at some point, surely. Look, Paul Heckenbottom got put 8 past them yesterday by 8 different scorers. Could Hibs put 10 past someone with 10 different scorers? Why the fuck not? But look, we'll be back next week. Hopefully it's on the back of 2 more victories at Easter Road as we look ahead to the upcoming Edinburgh Derby in just under 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much for joining us on YouTube. Thank you for listening. Cheers.
See ya.